The final day of the first weekend of March Madness is officially in the books for the SEC. 4 more teams from the best conference in college basketball, at least this season, have officially punched their tickets to the Sweet 16. We are here reacting to, breaking down everything we saw from the wins of the Florida Gators, Alabama Crimson Tide, Kentucky Wildcats, and the Ole Miss Rebels. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He is lead basketball analyst here at SEC Unfiltered. Dave Shumate. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, you can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. And as always, we're powered by our friends over at FANDUEL. Visit FANDUEL.com/SECU to join today. Get started with $200 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, that's FANDUEL.com/SECU to get $200 in bonus bets today. What an eventful Sunday for the SEC. The whole SEC might be overrated thing. Well, that chatter certainly has died off as the SEC goes 4-0 on Sunday, and 7 total teams, a new record for the NCAA tournament. 7 from one conference, of course, that being the SEC, are headed to the Sweet 16. We're breaking down, reacting to the 4 games we saw today. I'm Chris Phillips. Helping me do so, my good friend and lead basketball analyst here at SEC Unfiltered, Dave Shumate. Dave, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time. Man, this is probably the most fun reaction we've had to this point because a 4-0 clean sweep day for the conference. Dude, the SEC flexed its muscles today.
We got to do the Jameis Winston. He's trying to get these dubs. See if he
eat the W. Got to eat the W today.
Yeah, I mean, he's counting it, man. He's counting it all 7. I mean, I thought when me and you talked on, I think it must have been Friday night, or we did our show on Friday night. I was saying 5, and on Saturday morning I changed it to 6. 7, man. Wild. 7 out of the final 16 teams will come from the Southeastern Conference. You're knock on wood a little bit. You're not saying you're going to guarantee a team in the Final Four, but you feel pretty damn good about it. But no, the SEC flexing its muscles after, and again, it was always overstated in the first place. The teams that lost outside of Missouri were all underdogs or the lower seed. They were supposed to lose. And again, a lot of people had Drake beating Missouri. So the SEC never really had like the bad upset or had a bad loss of this. And then you see what happens on Saturday and Sunday. 3-1 on Saturday, 4-0 on Sunday. A lot of national journalists, a lot of SEC haters truly punching air right now.
A lot of SEC haters, Dave. That is the key word, key phrase. I think all of us knew, hey, give it some time. It's going to work itself out. Certainly it does that. Again, guys, the 7 teams from the SEC head to the Sweet 16, Auburn, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, and Ole Miss. So the Southeastern Conference will be well represented. Again, we are reacting to, breaking down the 4 games that took place today. So, Dave, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. Let's lock in on those. The Florida Gators, with one of the thrillers today, they beat Yukon by a final score of 77-75. This game back and forth, you expected a good fight from Dan Hurley, the back-to-back national champions. You mentioned, Dave, and I think you and I talked about a few nights ago, the coaching matchup between Golden, Dan Hurley. You knew Yukon was going to put forward their best effort and put together a really solid effort. They did in this game, but Florida comes out triumphant. They shoot 46% from the field, 47% from 3. Walter Clayton Jr. with 23 points in the game. Martin had 18. Will Richard had 15. You look at Yukon, Dave, shot 38% from the field, 28% from 3. McNeely with 22 points leading the way for them. Caravan with 14 and Johnson with 10. Dave, your thoughts on what you saw from the Florida Gators? And again, I think a game you and I both, we expected Florida to win. The entire public, it seemed like, was on Gators minus 9.5, by the way, which made me hate the bet. And sure enough, Yukon covers and covers fairly easily. But the bottom line is this: Florida gets the win. They're headed to the Sweet 16.
Yeah. I mean, Florida, I hate the old cliche, CP, and I think you do too. It's like teams needed a loss. Well, I think it's a good situation, the perfect scenario. Teams needed a little bit of a reality check. Chances of Florida going back to that Alabama game in Tuscaloosa when they were finally healthy rolling through, steamrolling through everybody they have all the way on their way to 6 wins to win the national title. Probably slim to none. They have some things to improve on, get a little bit of a reality check against the 2-time national champs, but you get to learn a lesson in the best way possible, the hard way, but at the same time, your season continues. You get to practice tomorrow. So I think they kind of needed it. Like you said, though, give Yukon credit. Dan Hurley and them had them ready. They had some of their younger cats, like you mentioned, Liam McNeely, who's a high 5-star kid, came down to Alabama and Yukon. Like, he stepped up. Like you said, Walter Clayton, I think he's the best guard in the league this year. But Florida, I mean, it's this point, it's this time of year, CP. It's almost like you can't overanalyze these games because it's just like they're all just a one, like, just data point of their own. And at this point in the year, if you're trying to go win 6, you just flush that next one and move on. Like, yeah, you go briefly look at the film, and it's like, let's flush it, man. There's not much more we can build off of because each team is different and each matchup is different. So I think Florida against the 2-time defending national champions, Alex Caravan and the boys, they had some guys that had played in Final Fours. They challenged Florida, hit them in the mouth. Yukon could have won this, but Florida showed some championship mettle, got it done. Give them the nod, CP. I still like the Gators. I think they needed this. I think this could make them better.
Yeah, it's always good, Dave, when you can learn lessons out of wins. Like you said, like most of the times it takes failure or losses, in this case with it being sports, to learn a hard lesson. But like you mentioned, you get that gut check. You had to come back. You win, probably too close for comfort for them. And so, like you mentioned, there's a lot that Todd Golden and company can take from this one. They can build off of, they can learn. And it sort of is that punch in the gut they needed to make sure moving forward, obviously Sweet 16 and moving on, that they've got all their ducks in a row. They've got everything situated. Dave, I know it's not related to the game. It's not even related to the SEC, but I got to get your thoughts. Dan Hurley in postgame. What did you make of man, he's a great coach from the standpoint. I mean, dude, you win back-to-back national championships. That's not by accident. But this felt like, Dave, tell me if you think I'm wrong, this kind of felt like a bad season for Dan Hurley stock. Like, I feel like all I saw of Dan Hurley on the timeline or national guys talking about him was for negative things, like stuff like this.
How he acted in Maui back in November.
I feel like it's all I saw. I don't know. It didn't feel like a good season for his stock as a coach.
It was his antics. Yeah. I mean, look, I think Dan Hurley currently is the best coach in the sport, high IQ guy, really good basketball coach. But from that perspective, the way he handled that at the end, you're yelling at Baylor's players saying, I hope they don't F you like they just did us. And your players are right there next to you walking back in the tunnel. It's kind of a last memory of the season. It's not, I mean, let's be honest, that's not the best way to handle yourself. I mean, it's not. Like, you're yelling. Even if I was Scott Drew, Baylor's coach, I'd probably be like, why is this guy yelling at my team, trying to get us in the head, right? You're trying to get in my team, just laying that piece of, like, information in my team's head saying that you're about to get screwed, essentially, is what you're going to tell me. Or tell my team. I don't know. I don't even know how you could defend his behavior at the end of the game. I know he's an emotional guy. He wears his emotions on his sleeve, but still, you got to handle yourself a little better there. But phenomenal coach, phenomenal basketball mind. But yeah, I mean, two things can be true at once. He's also a psychopath.
He is a psychopath indeed. There was no question. Dave, Florida advances obviously to the Sweet 16. They will take on the Maryland Terrapins. We'll get official dates, times, everything, the schedule, when we talk about, we're going to preview, predict everything, the Sweet 16, Elite 8, the second weekend, middle of this week. So stay tuned for that, myself and Dave Shumate. Dave, have you seen some of the spreads that have already come out for these games?
I haven't seen any of them.
Okay, so Florida, Maryland, it is out. Your guess on this
Florida,
one?
Maryland, and San Francisco, I think, at Oracle. I'm going to go Florida minus 5.5.
David, is Florida minus 5.5. Right on the money is Dave Shumate. Over under set
5, baby.
Over under set at 154.5. So Dave, I think that's the first one you've nailed right on the number. Good for you. Good for you. Dave, let's keep it moving. The Alabama Crimson Tide, they take down St. Mary's, final score of 80-66. Some really fun kind of theatrics in this game, some big-time dunks in this game, some highlight reel plays, if you will, from Alabama. The Crimson Tide, Dave, shoot 52% from the field, 41% from three. Youngblood leads the way with 13 points. Bunch of different guys in this game stepped up. Youngblood with 13, Grant Nelson with 12, Holloway with 12, Omoryi with 10, Ubate with 10, so a lot of guys in double-digit figures for Alabama. You look at St. Mary's, Dave, 34% from the field, 21% from three. Their leading scorer was Saxon with 15, Wessels with 12, and Marshallonis with 11. Dave, your thoughts? What did you see from Alabama here? Again, it felt like it was two different types of athletes on the floor. Bama gets the big dub and they advance.
Yeah, I think this one, it came down to it. If Alabama rebounded, it was going to be really hard for St. Mary's, I think, to score enough to keep up with Alabama. Again, total contrasting styles here. Alabama leads the country in offensive possessions. I think St. Mary's was like 353, 357th in tempo, very low. Did not get a lot of shots. They like to play in the 60s. We knew that was going to be contrasting, but they were the number one offensive, or they led the country in offensive rebounding margin. So you can factor in a little bit of the schedule. It's usually just them and Gonzaga. They beat Gonzaga twice this year, but Bama won the rebounding margin 41-36. They were plus 10 at half. I thought that was the difference in this game across the board. You're right. Pretty spread out scoring tonight. But I thought overall, Alabama controlled most of the pace. This is the first team all year to put up 80 on St. Mary's. Well-coached team, but just Alabama out-athleted them, made them play their pace. It kind of felt like St. Mary's was playing catch-up for most of the night as Alabama was up 13. But good win for Alabama. Move on to face BYU, man, which should be I can't wait for you to tell me what the over-under in that game is opened up at. That'll be a very high-scoring game. Two very NBA style of guys with Coach Young at BYU and obviously Nate Oates in Alabama.
Yeah, again, Dave, I think you mentioned, I'll say it again, two different type of athletes on the floor. That happens a lot when you have the Crimson Tide, and I think that's what showed tonight against St. Mary's. Dave, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but our friends at FanDuel do not have a line in total
yet.
It
makes sense, yeah. I mean, it just happened.
Yeah, do not have a line and total for this one quite yet. We will update you guys as soon as we get one. I think one of the reasons, Dave, is because in the East region, you've still got Oregon and Arizona going on. Maybe they're waiting. I have no idea.
You're probably right. That probably is it.
I will continue to try to refresh through the end of this show at least to see if we can get that spread by the end of the show. Either way, Dave, let's keep it moving. The Kentucky Wildcats are headed back to the Sweet 16, the first time, Dave, in 6 seasons, which feels weird to say, but that's been the case. 84-75, Kentucky beats Illinois. Dave, this game was a coin flip from the standpoint of Vegas. It was 1.5 to Illinois. It was 1.5 to Kentucky. Line kind of swung back and forth. The Cats nearly get a double-digit win, and Mark Pope, Dave, in his first season, is headed to the Sweet 16. Kentucky shoots 47% from the field, 38% from three. Kobe Brea with 23 points in this game. Otega Owe with 15 points. You then look at Illinois, shot 44% from the field, 28% from three. Avicic with 19. Jacasonis with 13. Boswell with 23. He was the leader. Dave, your thoughts, what you saw from Kentucky, and the fact that Mark Pope comes in to Lexington and he's taking the Cats back to the Sweet 16 and first time in 6 years.
I mean, phenomenal year. I mean, what would we be saying right now? I know this is a little off topic. Don't want to take a little bit from Kentucky, but man, think about it. John Calipari, and Mark Pope were in the Sweet 16, both in their first years at Arkansas and Kentucky. So both teams are kind of winners there. Again, needed to go separate ways. Conversation for the other day. But this specific one, I mean, phenomenal win, I thought, for Kentucky across the board there. Obviously, you're moving to the Sweet 16. First time Sweet 16 since what? 19 off the top of my 19, I believe. Yeah. But man, you got to give them credit across the board there. Keep moving on. I said it when the tournament was announced a week ago tonight. I thought Kentucky was a pretty weak 3 seed. I did. But again, they've been banged up this year, and they get to roll into the Sweet 16 against another SEC foe that they've beaten twice this year. That's the Tennessee Volunteers. But no, I mean, thought Kentucky did a really good job. The turnovers, I mean, for Illinois were backbreakers, 14. And in points off turnovers, Kentucky had 26, CP. I mean, that was essentially the game and gave Kentucky a lead for most of the night. Kobe Brea, big time shots from beyond the arc. Kentucky, Lamont Butler, he's the key. He's the straw that stirs the drink, like we've been saying and everybody's been saying all year. Cats move on. Can they beat? That's the question. Can they beat the Vols, the rival Vols, 3 times in one season? I don't know, CP.
Dave, Indianapolis has never experienced – I don't know that it has. I'm going to venture and say it hasn't. It's never experienced such toxicity like it's going to experience with Tennessee.
Oh, CP, factor this in. This is going to be an expensive ticket, the Midwest region. Purdue's there too.
Mm-hmm.
Purdue, Houston.
Those session tickets are going to be
that
very
will be
pricey.
Through the roof because the 3 out of the 4 proximity between Purdue, Kentucky, and Tennessee are not far at all.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one, Dave, when we're previewing and predicting and breaking down all these Sweet 16 matchups. I mean, that's one that you and I have discussed, a few times this season. It's a matchup I saw in person a few months ago when I went to.
Let's see if I got tickets going right now. Let's see.
You got the ticket prices
on the Game Time app.
Hey, while you're looking that up? Spread total is out for that one. What are you guessing spread total in that?
Tennessee, Kentucky.
Tennessee, Kentucky spread.
CP, you were at a Tennessee, Kentucky game this year.
And Kentucky won that game in Knoxville. In Knoxville at the Tommy Bowl, yes.
That line in Indy, neutral court. I'm going to go Tennessee minus 3.5.
It is Vols minus 4.5.
Ooh. Yeah, I figured Tennessee would be favored, even though Kentucky's won twice.
Over-under set at 145.
Stevie, what's your early thoughts on that one? Again, we're not going to talk Tennessee tonight since they won last night, but what's your early thoughts? You think they can beat Tennessee for a third time?
It's hard to beat a good team 3 times, Dave. And I've seen some of their fans, too.
Alabama beat Kentucky 3 times
That's true. That's true. Dave, I've seen the chatter's already starting right around Rick Barnes and just the program trajectory, and I've already seen them talking about essentially like this is the biggest game in Tennessee basketball history. Like it's a shot to go to the Elite Eight, and you got to beat Kentucky to do it. Probably an over-exaggeration, obviously, right? But yeah, I mean,
be a very sour taste to lose to them for a third time to end your season. To end your season.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think you can. And this is kind of a cop-out. We will lock in predictions, I promise. But, you could go either way, Dave. You could say, hey, it's really hard to beat a team 3 times. You got to side with the Vols. On the other side, you go, Kentucky knows how to beat this Tennessee team.
Good matchup.
I mean, it is a really good matchup. Can Tennessee keep up with Kentucky offensively? That's going to be the question. I don't know that Tennessee's defense is going to be able to bail them out in that game. You're going to have to score. You're going to have to find some offensive production. So, yeah,
man, that'll be a fun one, though.
Yeah, that's gonna be. I mean, for us, obviously,
that's Thursday. I think that's Thursday. Yeah, that's Thursday.
Yeah, for us, SEC on SEC, Dave. It doesn't get any better than that for us. Obviously, it's the only unfortunate part, Dave, is one of them has to go home. So that's the only unfortunate part. One of them's got to get eliminated, but just the nature of the beast. Finally, Dave, here on Sunday night, the upset of the day, the upset of the night, the upset of the tournament, maybe, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, when it comes to the SEC in the tournament. The Ole Miss Rebels take down the 3-seed Iowa State by a final score of 91-78. Dave, Hotty Toddy is headed back to the Sweet 16 for the first time in 24 years. It has been a really long time. What Chris Beard has done with this program is simply phenomenal. You look at Ole Miss, Dave. They shot 58% from the field, 58% from 3. I mean, it was just Padula leads the way with 20 points. Dia had a fantastic game, by the way. Dia with 18. He was chirping the sideline a little bit. That was fun.
Dia was on his Malik Dia beating Alabama back in January.
Yeah, he was on his game, 18 points for him. Morrell had 15 points. Brakefield had 19 points. A lot of different guys contributing for Ole Miss. You look at Iowa State, 48% from the field, 36% from 3. Jefferson with 16 points. Heiss with 13 points. And then Jones had 26 points. Curtis Jones leading the way for the Cyclones. But it was not enough, Dave. Ole Miss really, they controlled this game. Start to finish. Ole Miss, 24 years in the makings, back in the Sweet 16, Dave.
Yeah, I think Ole Miss would have beat a lot of teams tonight. Most teams, I'd be willing to venture to say. I mean, CP, listen to this. You just read out 58.2% from the field, 57.9. Let's call it 58% from beyond the arc, 11 for 19. Only 8 turnovers. You scored 91 points against a TJ Otzelberger-led Iowa State Cyclone team. Granted, they're hurt, but still, tonight, Ole Miss probably to beat anybody. You're shooting almost 58%. At one point, they were at 60% from beyond the arc. And you're in the single digits in turnovers. You aren't losing many games. So, again, am I saying Ole Miss can beat any team? No, probably not on a consistent night in, night out basis. But they have beat Iowa State. They have beat Alabama this year. They play like they did tonight. They can beat anybody else. Do I think they shoot, or anyone in the country, do I think they shoot 58% every night for the remainder of this tournament in 4 more games? Doubtful. But no, Ole Miss, phenomenal. I mean, like you said, CP controlled most of this. They got, like you said, Malik Diaz-Bass really reminded me of that performance he had in Tuscaloosa, 18 points, 8 rebounds. But, yeah, I mean, 4 starters in double figures, Padula with 20, Morrell with 15. I always say it. Well, I always say it. Ole Miss hits their ceiling, and this was probably the duo, CP. Best performance of the season. I say it every reaction. Ole Miss's ceiling is set by the combination of Matthew Morrell, Jamin Brakefield. If they can combine for 20 points, it's usually a good recipe for success for the Rebs. Morrell goes for 15. Brakefield goes for 19. That's 34 points combined, boys. That dog will hunt most nights. Ole Miss, I would have beat most teams. I think everyone, they would have beat everybody tonight. I'm willing to say it. That was a dominant win. Chris Beard's an X factor in March. Where's our guy that's been called Ole Miss a fraud, CP? Where's that guy at? Is he still?
Dude, I don't know. I don't know where that cat is at. I'm gonna try to find really.
Ole Miss is my hot pick, CP. I had them in the Sweet 16. I like their draw. And again, they're gonna. I mean, they get in the. They're heading to face either Michigan State or New Mexico. That game's still going on.
Let's see. Tim Doyle, CBS Sports. Tim Doyle.
You told us how much he makes a year during that rant.
Dude, Ole Miss beats North Carolina. He called them frauds again. He doubled down, and Ole Miss wins again. So, I think you got to give that shtick up, man.
Yeah, all right. So Michigan State's up 68-58. They're up 10 with a minute 30 left. So looks like it's going to be Ole Miss, Michigan State.
Dave, this is really quickly. This is what that Tim Doyle guy said. Quote, "You beat Iowa State, okay. Until then, the label still kind of fits." Said, quote, "Some would say this is one fraud team beating another. You beat a team that should not have been in," end quote. He'll have to change his tune tonight. That's for sure. Because you beat Iowa State. Not that it should have taken that, but there's the respect that you asked them to earn. Now what? Now what do you say? So,
you're right.
Tip of the cap to Chris Beard, Dave. I mean, what he's done with that program, again, 24 long years since Ole Miss has gone to the Sweet 16 there back. And like you mentioned, that game right now, Michigan State up 68-58, like you said, minute and a half left. It looks like it is going to be Ole Miss, Michigan State. Obviously, we don't have
that region set, CP, 2 SEC teams.
Yeah. That is, yes. And there's a very good chance, at least a decent chance, SEC Unfiltered very well may be in attendance, myself and your guy, Dave Shumate. TBD, just stay tuned. We're working on some things, though, behind the scenes. Dave, your early thoughts on that matchup, Ole Miss, Michigan State?
I think Ole Miss could win that game, certainly. That game's a pretty big toss-up to me. It wouldn't shock me, obviously, either way. Again, you get to the round of Sweet 16, everybody's playing well. Everybody's won at least 2 games at that point, depending if you played the play-in game, maybe 3, but not this year. But no, I mean, I think rebounding will be key because Ole Miss, I think, is the second smallest team in the SEC, but Michigan State has some bigs they can throw at you and they rebound well. Then also, I mean, let's factor in it's Tom Izzo as well. Again, another phenomenal coaching matchup, Tom Izzo versus Chris Beard. So I'm fired up about that in Atlanta. I think that's a Friday. It's Friday, Sunday. Okay. And they got Auburn, Michigan in the other game. So, yeah, think about that. So you got Michigan, Michigan State both in that.
Yeah, and 2 SEC teams in both of the big Michigan schools in that. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Dave, before we get out of here, the fact that the SEC gets 7 teams in the Sweet 16, I want you to expand on that, your thoughts, what it means for the conference, not just for this season, but moving forward, the future of college basketball in the SEC. I mean, you and I both recall, Dave, a time where this league wasn't even getting 7 teams in the tournament. And now they have 7 teams in the Sweet 16, a day that I'm not sure you or I even thought would ever come or was possible. Just your thoughts, Dave, on what the conference has done this year.
Yeah, I mean, I was in college in 2011, I believe it was. Alabama finished I want to say second, maybe third that year with Anthony Grant. It was like Jermichael Green, and then they finished second or third in the SEC and didn't even make the NCAA tournament. Think about that. That'd be essentially like Alabama or Florida not making the tournament this year. I mean, it's the second or third team. I mean, so again, tip of the cap to really the SEC network. I think it got us going. The people who put this together, they wanted to have some stuff to put on TV in the spring. Everybody was going to get on your cable, on your streaming services, the SEC network. All these basketball games, at least during conference play from January through March or at the beginning of March, are all on the SEC network for the most part, or the ESPN Plus, so, something. And I think it gave them more money. Sankey, these SEC people went to these presidents like, hey, if you want to take basketball serious, you're going to have some money and we can get some really good coaches in there. Elevated the coaches. I mean, think about it. Think of the coaches we have in the Sweet 16, CP, from this league. Nate Oates, Bruce Pearl, Rick Barnes, John Calipari. Mark Pope's just got his first 2 wins ever in the NCAA tournament. He's in this. Chris Beard. And then who's my other one I'm missing? Or 7 off the top of my head.
Rick Barnes. Or did you say Rick Barnes?
I said Slick Rick.
I
said BP. I said Rick Barnes.
Oh, Todd Golden.
And Todd Golden at Florida. Yeah. So, man, just phenomenal. I mean, Calipari is going to be a Hall of Famer. I think Bruce Pearl is going to be a Hall of Famer. Rick Barnes is a Hall of Famer. I mean, you're going to have, right off the top of my head, the older coaches in the league out of those 3, Pearl, Calipari, and Rick Barnes, going to be future Hall of Famers. And Chris Beard, Nate Oates are well on their way to that. So, man, wild times in the SEC, but I think it's here to stay. I mean, I'm not saying the SEC is getting 7 teams in the Sweet 16 every year now. But like you said, this is starting to be how we've seen over the past 10, 15 years for the SEC in baseball. It's stuff like this, like super regional teams. How many SEC teams are in? Well, that's the final 16. Like, same thing. Like, man, 8 teams from the SEC are in the super region. It's very similar now, baseball and basketball, how deep it is, how good it is, and how I may even say you cover baseball. You're more locked in on it than I am these days because I'm not covering it. But I'd even still say the basketball league, top end, probably a little better than the top end of the baseball teams right now. Top heavy. I mean, you got a couple teams that can get to the Final Four. I think 3 could win it all. So, no, phenomenal year for the league. A lot of people, like we said, CP, punching that air right now. I thought they were going to have the butt of the jokes when the SEC was 4-4. But I think people were forgetting the teams that lost were expected to lose. So, I mean, again, if you put 14 teams in, CP, again, I wasn't even good at math, but basic math tells you, yeah, some teams are going to take some losses. If you have more teams in, there's a better chance they're going to lose some games. So I think it is what it is. It was always how many teams were going to get into the second weekend. Sweet 16, 7 out of the 16, almost half of the final 16 field. Can't say anything else.
And now you feel confident, Dave, with, dare I say, the SEC getting half of the Final Four field? I mean, that's got to be realistic, right?
Do we have any regions with just one SEC team in it? Like, let's see, the West is Florida. Let's pull up.
Well, yes, with Alabama, because it's Alabama, BYU, and then it's Duke, and either the winner of
the
Oregon, Arizona. Bama's by themselves. So.
The East region's by themselves. You're right.
East region's by themselves. You've got in the Midwest, Kentucky and Tennessee.
The West, I'm going to Florida. I think Florida's the only one.
Maryland, and Texas Tech, Arkansas. You've got 2.
Yep, Arkansas's in Florida. You're right. So Bama's the only East. Yep, now I'm looking at the bracket now. Yep, but the East region's the only region with one SEC team in
it. Dave, we could have some pretty wild Elite 8 matchups. SEC on SEC. We could get.
Could you get Ole Miss Auburn for a 4th time this year?
For a 4th time.
Twice in the regular season in Nashville and then in Atlanta. Let's play everywhere in the Southeast, fellas.
Why not? Let's do it. I mean, why not? It'd be fun to talk about again.
Then we already have Kentucky, Tennessee. I mean, that's a guarantee, SEC on SEC. Yeah, dude, wild time, man. It's funny. It's fun. I mean, like you said, we got a lot to cover this week, which is awesome. Like you said, hopefully we'll be at All-State Arena starting on Friday for Auburn and Ole Miss.
Yeah, like I said, guys, we're working on things behind the scenes. We will announce everything on social media. Obviously, y'all will be in the know, but hopefully you'll be seeing myself and our good man right here, Dave Shumate, lead basketball analyst at SEC Unfiltered, taking it all in. Sweet 16, Elite 8, both Auburn and Ole Miss there. And obviously, we'll be covering all the action. Middle of this week, you can expect to hear from us Tuesday night, probably same thing we did last week. We'll break everything down, preview the Sweet 16 and Elite 8. We'll give our predictions, all that good stuff, talk gambling as we always do. Going to be a great time. But, Dave, again, I want to echo what you said. The way the conference, the sport of basketball, it's ascension, if you will, to the point where it has now caught up with, and it is a debate if it's surpassed the sport of baseball, which I never thought we'd be having that conversation. The fact we are, again, it's a testament to the SEC's investment in the sport. You look at the coaches, that's where it really starts. And obviously now with NIL, portal, revenue sharing, just the era we're entering in college sports, the investment only continues and only grows. So, I mean, it's a great time to be an SEC basketball fan. And like you mentioned, brings a smile to my face knowing there are a lot of folks out there that we're hoping for the SEC's demise in the tournament, maybe thought they were going to get it. Again, I agree with you. You look at some of the teams that lost, it was like, well, those were the teams with the losing records in the conference. So it shouldn't have been all that much of a surprise. And the SEC gets the last laugh with 7 teams in the Sweet 16. How crazy is that? So, guys, again, appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast. Where you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. Before we get out of here, I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel, because as always, we're brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. This bracket season, FanDuel's letting you make the call, because right now new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to bet on everything from clutch shots to last-second heartbreaks and even who's cutting down the nets. If you've been waiting to join, there's no better time. There's tourney action almost every day, and FanDuel has amazing bet types like spreads, totals, game props, and so much more. Again, myself, Dave Shumate, we are dropping our picks each and every single day. Tail us, fade us, whatever you want to do. We're going to continue to do so through Sweet 16, through the Elite 8. As we continue through the tournament, we're going to be dropping our picks each and every single day. So visit FanDuel.com/SECU and get in on the college hoops action all tourney long. Must be 21 and up and present in select states or 18 and up and present in D.C. First online, real money wager only, $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bet, expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel's offering online sports wagering in Kansas under agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In Connecticut, or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 20% support in Massachusetts, or call 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Guys, once again, we appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Stay tuned for that Sweet 16 Elite 8 preview dropping on Tuesday. We'll have all of our picks, all of our predictions. You already know the drill. And keep an eye out. Yours truly and Dave Shumate might end up in Atlanta, Georgia this weekend to cover the action in person. You just never know. So again, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. For Dave Shumate, lead basketball analyst at SEC Unfiltered, I am Chris Phillips. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your night. Get some rest. We got 7 teams in the Sweet 16 to talk about. We'll see you guys on the other side.